Lone trucker picks up a stunning woman on a jungle road. But it was a trap. He thought it was just another rainy night on a lonely stretch of road. But what Ethan Blake didn't know was that the moment he slowed down for a beautiful woman in red, everything was about to change. She stood there alone, soaked by the storm, asking for help with pleading eyes and a trembling voice. And despite all the alarms going off in his mind, he let her in. What followed was not a rescue. It was a game of deception, survival, and buried instincts rising from the shadows. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and like the video to support powerful stories like this one. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Your words might inspire the next story. As the truck moved deeper into the jungle, Ethan realized he wasn't just carrying cargo. He was carrying a dangerous lie. One that could cost him more than just his delivery. It could cost his life, but this time the man who once lost everything was ready. He wouldn't be fooled again. And by the end of the night, he would discover that sometimes saving yourself means not saving someone else. The rain had been relentless for hours, turning the jungle road into a slick, winding snake of mud and gravel. Ethan Blake gripped the wheel of his truck like a lifeline, his eyes scanning the barely visible path ahead. Inside the cab, the only sounds were the squeaking of wipers and the low rumble of the engine. He hadn't spoken a word all day. He didn't need to. The road didn't talk back, and he liked it that way. Silence was safe. Silence didn't betray you. A tattered photo hung from the dashboard, a woman and a little girl smiling under a bright sun. Ethan glanced at it briefly before returning his focus to the road. He didn't allow himself more than a second. That image used to keep him going. Now, it just reminded him why he kept moving. The past was a weight he carried in his chest, and every mile he drove was an attempt to outrun it. He told himself he didn't need anyone anymore, just deliveries and destinations. As he rounded a bend near a cluster of trees, something red caught his eye through the rain-soaked windshield. At first he thought it was a flare or an animal, but then it moved slowly, deliberately, and raised a hand. A woman, standing alone. Her dress clung to her like a second skin, soaked and muddy, and her hair was plastered to her face. She looked fragile, stunning, and completely out of place in this forsaken stretch of road. Ethan's heart skipped. He slowed the truck almost. Without thinking, tires hissing against the wet mud. She didn't flinch. Her eyes locked with his as he rolled down the window. "Please," she said, her voice hoarse and desperate. "I've been walking for hours. My car broke down. I don't know where I am." Something in her tone wavered between fear and confidence, and Ethan caught it. Still, he hesitated. Ethan scanned the surroundings. No sign of a car, no footprints leading from anywhere, just dense jungle. "You're far from anything out here," he muttered. She nodded, hugging her arms as if to shield herself from the cold, or perhaps from his gaze. Against every instinct telling him otherwise, he unlocked the door. The moment she stepped in, the cab seemed smaller, her perfume mixing with the damp smell of rain and diesel. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know if anyone would come." They drove in silence for a while. Ethan glanced at her through the corner of his eye. Her beauty was undeniable, almost theatrical. But it wasn't just that. It was how she seemed composed, too composed for someone stranded in the middle of nowhere. Her breathing was steady. Her makeup, though a bit smudged, still framed her face with care. Her dress, though dirty, was expensive. It didn't add up. "You live around here?" he asked casually. "No," she replied quickly. "Just passing through." The answer came too fast, like something rehearsed. Ethan nodded, pretending not to notice. He'd been on enough roads to recognize when something wasn't right, and something about her presence made every nerve in his body twitch with quiet alarm. She began to tell a story. An abusive boyfriend, a fight, running into the jungle to escape. Ethan listened, but something in him stayed guarded. He knew pain when he saw it, but he also knew performance. The worst liars often told just enough truth to make you lean in. He kept driving, the wipers beating out a rhythm that now seemed like a warning drum. Up ahead, the road forked, left toward the main town, right into a lesser-known detour. Ethan usually avoided shortcuts, but this time he hesitated. Gut stirred with unease, yet curiosity had already taken the wheel. He took the right. Isla didn't question it. She simply looked ahead and smiled faintly. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, but his thoughts were tangled in knots. Isla, as she had introduced herself, sat quietly beside him, gazing out the window. Every now and then she'd shift in her seat or brush hair from her face, but something about her composure unsettled him. Most people rescued from a remote jungle road would ramble nervously or ask questions. She did neither. Her silence felt less like shock and more like calculation. After a few minutes she began speaking again, this time softer, more vulnerable. She told him about the man she was fleeing from, a jealous boyfriend, she said, who had isolated her from friends and left her stranded after a fight. She described emotional abuse, late-night arguments, and how she finally ran out after he threatened her. Her voice cracked at the right moments, and she kept her eyes low. It was convincing. Too convincing. Ethan nodded but didn't offer much. He had heard stories like that before, sometimes true, sometimes not. "Do you have any family?" she asked suddenly, breaking the rhythm of the ride. Ethan glanced at her, caught off guard by the personal question. "Not anymore," he answered. Her face registered sympathy. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry." Ethan gave a small shrug. "It's all right." But inside, the question echoed louder than it should have. Why ask something so personal so soon? As the truck rumbled over a broken patch of road, Ethan noticed Isla checking her reflection in the side mirror. She adjusted her hair slightly, wiped a smudge of mascara, and turned back to her window without comment. The gesture was quick, but deliberate, not of someone who had been crying in the jungle, but someone preparing for something. Ethan gripped the wheel tighter. The more he observed, the less her story aligned with her behavior. "I used to love the road," she murmured. "When I was a kid, my dad would take me on these long drives, just him and me. No destination, just movement, felt free." The story seemed spontaneous, maybe even genuine, but Ethan noticed something else. She was steering the conversation now. Each sentence peeled a layer of her backstory like it was being performed. He didn't interrupt. As they approached a narrow bridge, a vehicle appeared behind them, a black SUV keeping distance but not falling back. Ethan adjusted his mirror and kept an eye on it. Isla didn't mention it. That struck him. Most passengers would have noticed it, maybe even asked about it. She didn't flinch. Either she didn't care, or she already knew it was there. Ethan's instincts screamed louder. He pulled into a clearing just past the bridge to check on a loose tarp in the back. Isla offered to help, but he declined. "Stay here," he said firmly. Outside he moved slowly, eyes darting between the shadows and the SUV behind them. It hadn't moved closer. Yet. He checked the tarp quickly, it was fine, and climbed. Back into the cab. Isla smiled faintly like nothing had happened. Her calm was too perfect. Back on the road, Isla began asking about his cargo. "What do you haul usually?" she asked. "Depends," he said cautiously. "Sometimes electronics. This time just tools and farm supplies." He lied. The truck held high-end generators, valuable, traceable. Isla nodded slowly, as if filing that answer away. That was the moment Ethan knew she wasn't just making conversation. She was gathering information. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Ethan's jaw tightened, his mind racing. If this was a setup, it wasn't just opportunistic, and it was planned. He mentally mapped out alternate routes, nearby gas stations, police checkpoints. Isla crossed her legs, pulled her dress over her knees and stared ahead. Whatever she was waiting for, Ethan was determined to get there first. Ethan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel tighter. The black SUV remained in his mirrors, never too close, never too far. It was like a predator stalking prey with patience. Isla kept her gaze forward, silent, her demeanor unshaken. Ethan took a deep breath and made a sharp right turn onto a narrow, overgrown path, not on the GPS, but one he remembered from years ago. A service route rarely used, winding through dense forest. Isla didn't question the detour. That more than anything confirmed his suspicion. The road became bumpier, flanked by thick underbrush and towering trees that blocked out the light. Mud splashed across the windshield and vines brushed against the sides of the truck. Still, the SUV didn't follow. Ethan checked his mirror. Nothing, for now. Isla turned her head slightly, her eyes cool. "Shortcut?" she asked. "Something like that," Ethan replied, voice dry. Her expression didn't change. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't even curious. That told him everything. They passed. An abandoned ranger post, a structure half consumed by the jungle. Ethan slowed down as they neared it, using the moment to observe her reaction. Isla's eyes flicked to the building but showed no alarm. She crossed her arms. "Creepy place," she muttered. "You've been here before?" Ethan asked casually. Her pause was just long enough. "No. Just looks like every horror movie I've ever seen." The joke fell flat. Ethan didn't smile. Inside the cab, tension thickened. Ethan's mind darted through every memory of tricks he'd heard on the road, lures, setups, fake emergencies. He remembered old trucker forums warning about women used as bait. Some stories sounded like urban legends, until now. He reached down and discreetly flipped a switch on the dashboard. A silent security system armed itself, locking down the cargo area and activating hidden cameras. Isla didn't notice. The narrow trail widened briefly, revealing a clearing with rusted car, frames and tire tracks, signs this place had seen others. Ethan's chest tightened. "People dump junk here?" Isla asked, feigning mild disgust. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "Sometimes more than junk." Her smile faded for a split second. A chill passed between them, quiet but heavy. Ethan let it hang. He wanted her to feel the shift. She adjusted in her seat, suddenly more alert. "So, what do you do when you're not saving stranded women?" she asked. The line was flirty but forced. Ethan didn't take the bait. "Mostly keep to myself," he said. "The road doesn't ask questions," she chuckled. "Maybe that's why you like it." Another beat of silence. "You always drive alone?" she added. Ethan didn't answer. That silence said enough. The jungle thickened again, and with it the rain returned, this time harder, louder. Branches slapped against the truck, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Isla shifted again, less composed now, her fingers tapping nervously on the window. For the first time her calm cracked. Ethan noticed. The road was working in his favor. The deeper they went, the more it felt like he was the one in control. Then came the sound, a faint crack in the distance. Ethan braked instinctively. Isla stiffened. "What was that?" she asked. "Tree falling, maybe," he replied. But they both knew better. He killed the engine and reached for a flashlight. "Stay inside," he said firmly. Isla's eyes flickered with something new, apprehension. As Ethan stepped out into the downpour, he wasn't just buying time. He was drawing lines. Ethan moved slowly through the thick undergrowth, flashlight cutting through sheets of rain. He scanned the perimeter, but the noise he'd heard was gone. No branches cracking, no movement. Just the rain slapping against leaves and mud. He knelt by a fresh set of tire marks, barely visible but unmistakably recent. They didn't belong to his truck. Someone had been here. Maybe still was. He rose carefully, his instincts sharper than ever, and turned back toward the truck. As he approached the cab, his stomach sank. The passenger door was open. Isla was gone. The faint glow of the cabin light flickered against the darkness, and her red dress was nowhere to be seen. Ethan picked up his pace, climbing inside and checking the dash. Everything seemed untouched, until he saw the lock indicator for the cargo bay flashing. It had been tampered with. She had tried to override it, and failed. He exhaled, somewhere, between relief and dread. The game was on. Then, from the trees, shadows moved. 3 figures emerged from the foliage, all men, all armed. One carried a machete, the second a crowbar, and the third had a handgun half wrapped in plastic. They were soaked but focused, their movements rehearsed. Isla appeared behind them, her dress now tied up for mobility, her hair pulled back. No more pretense, no more helplessness, just cold efficiency. "Get out of the truck," one of the men barked. Ethan didn't move. He gripped the wheel, his expression blank. The man stepped closer, raising the gun. "Out, now!" Isla met Ethan's eyes for a second. not with anger or fear, but something like recognition. He wasn't the man she expected. He was calm. Too calm. Ethan slowly raised his hands and pushed open the door, stepping out into the rain. "Easy," he said. "You don't want to do this." They surrounded him. The man with the gun barked orders. "Keys, now." Ethan nodded, reaching into his pocket, but his fingers grazed a hidden switch on his belt, a silent trigger wired into the truck. He pressed it. No sound. No visible change. But the system locked down the cabin and cargo tight. From this point, nothing could be opened from the outside. The men didn't notice. The one with the crowbar moved to the back, trying to pry the latch. "It's jammed," he called out. "Try the side panel," Isla ordered. Her voice had dropped an octave, now all business. The gunman shoved Ethan toward the edge of the truck. "What's in there?" he demanded. "Nothing worth dying over," Ethan muttered. It was the wrong answer. The man raised the pistol, but before he could speak, the security system blared a sharp alarm from within the cab. Red lights flashed. Isla's eyes widened. "Kill it!" someone shouted. Ethan dropped, rolling beneath the chassis. The first shot rang out, but it hit only metal. In the chaos, Ethan reached beneath the truck, grabbed a small flare gun stashed near the wheel hub, and fired it into the night sky. A burst of red fire exploded above the trees, burning through the rain. A signal, not just for help, but to let them know he wasn't alone anymore. The flare hissed into the night sky, casting a red glow over the treetops before vanishing into smoke. The intruders froze for a heartbeat, their eyes following the signal. Isla's face tensed. "What the hell was that?" one of the men growled. Ethan was still under the truck, heart pounding, hands muddy and soaked. He didn't wait for them to regroup. Crawling toward the front axle, he grabbed the emergency release cable hidden behind the bumper, another layer of defense he'd added after a close call years ago. With a quick jerk, the truck's underlights flashed and the horn blasted. Once, not only had the flare gone up, but the truck had now entered full lockdown mode, doors sealed, systems locked. No one was getting anything from it. "Back up! He's got something rigged!" Isla shouted, now fully alert, scanning the tree line. The gunman aimed under the truck, but Ethan had already rolled out the other side. He dashed into the jungle as a shot cracked behind him. Missed. He didn't look back. The forest was slick and dark, but Ethan knew terrain better than they did. He followed an old maintenance trail, hidden under fallen leaves. Behind him, shouts echoed. Isla's voice rang clear. "Don't let him reach the road." Her tone wasn't panicked. It was commanding. She wasn't just part of this, she was leading it. That realization struck harder than the gunfire. She had manipulated him from the beginning. Every word, every glance, a performance meant to. Disarm. And it almost worked. He made it to a small clearing and ducked behind a fallen tree, catching his breath. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the old instincts return, the ones from his military days before trucking. He'd buried that part of himself after the war and the tragedy that followed. But now, it was useful again. He wasn't just surviving. He was calculating. If he stayed on defense, he'd be hunted. If he struck first, he had a chance. Nearby, the group split up, moving through the brush. One man cursed loudly, slapping away branches. The gunman stayed near the truck. Isla, however, moved with purpose. She wasn't just following. She was tracking. Ethan watched her approach the area he had just passed. She paused, crouched, and examined footprints. That precision chilled him more than the weapons. She had done this before. Ethan grabbed a jagged branch from the ground and crept to the edge of the clearing. If he could isolate one of them, thin the herd, he could control the situation. A rustle behind him made him spin. One of the men had flanked his position. They locked eyes. The man raised his crowbar, but Ethan lunged first, swinging the branch into his knees. The man dropped with a grunt. Ethan didn't wait. He sprinted back toward the truck, hoping the others were still dispersed. When he reached the truck, he saw Isla standing alone by the passenger door, breathing heavily. She turned, saw him, and didn't raise her voice. "You're smarter than most," she said calmly, "but not fast enough." Ethan paused. "Then why are you alone?" Her lip curled slightly. "Because I gave them the wrong directions. I wanted a moment, just you and me." Her eyes shimmered in the stormlight. This wasn't supposed to go this way. Ethan kept distance, drenched, his chest heaving. "So what now?" he asked. "You let me walk," Isla said, "and I make sure no one follows you." "And the truck?" Ethan asked. She shrugged. "I never cared about the cargo. It was always about the challenge." The rain beat down, harder. Every instinct told Ethan to run, to fight, to trap her, but something in her voice wasn't fake, or maybe it was, and that was the real trap. The two stood there, drenched in rain and silence. The jungle around them pulsed with life. Distant. Thunder, chirping insects, and somewhere behind them, the faint echoes of the other men yelling Isla's name. But Isla didn't move. She simply watched Ethan with eyes no longer cold, no longer seducing, just tired. "I never lied about everything," she said. "I used to hitchhike for real. I really did hate being alone." Ethan didn't answer. The weight of what almost happened settled over him like fog. He took a slow step toward the truck, hand near his belt. Isla didn't flinch. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You noticed. You hesitated. Most don't." Ethan stopped. "Is that supposed to make me feel lucky?" She smiled without humor. "No, just seen." For a moment the mask dropped completely, and Ethan saw the person beneath the persona, a woman lost in her own schemes, maybe even looking for someone to stop her. But he wasn't here to fix her. He was here to survive. He reached the door of the truck. With one tap, it unlocked. Isla didn't move. She just stood in the rain, waiting. "If you go now," Ethan said, "you've got 10 minutes before they realize you vanished." She blinked. "You're letting me go?" He paused. "I'm not saving you. I'm choosing not to be like you." That line cut deeper than any insult. Isla's eyes dropped, and without another word she turned and walked toward the trees, vanishing into the green. Ethan climbed into the cab and shut the door. For a moment, he rested his forehead against the wheel, breathing deep. The horn, the buttons, the controls, all untouched now felt heavier, like he'd reclaimed something that had nearly been taken. Not just the truck, not just his life, but the version of himself he thought he'd buried years ago. He started the engine, and the rumble cut through the jungle like a heartbeat returning. As he pulled away from the clearing, the wipers swept away the past hour like it never happened. Yet he felt it in every muscle, every bone. A confrontation that could have ended in blood or betrayal, but instead delivered something else entirely. Clarity. Isla wasn't his responsibility, nor his savior, nor his curse. She was a mirror, and he chose not to look too long. Miles down the road, red and blue lights glowed faintly in the rain. Their police truck. Ethan slowed and flashed his lights. An officer stepped out. "Signal flare?" the man asked. Ethan nodded. "Attempted theft, didn't get far. Might still be in the woods." He gave no names, no details, just the facts. The officer nodded and called for backup. As they turned off toward the jungle, Ethan kept driving. He didn't look back. At a fuel stop hours later, Ethan leaned against his truck, coffee steaming in his hands. A young man approached and asked where he was headed. "Nowhere in particular," Ethan replied, half smiling, "but not in circles anymore." The kid laughed and walked off. Ethan watched him disappear into the night, then glanced at the mirror. For the first time in years, the reflection didn't haunt him. He climbed back into the cab, the photo on his dashboard still hanging. This time he didn't turn it down. He let it sway gently as the truck rolled forward. The road stretched. Ahead, unknown and wild, but no longer lonely. Ethan didn't need saving anymore. He had done it himself. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel and give it a like to support more stories like this. Your comment could inspire our next tale. Want to go deeper and help us grow? Join the channel as a member. Your support helps keep these powerful narratives alive. More gripping trucker stories, emotional confrontations, and shocking reveals are on the way. Don't miss the next one.